What's going on, guys? How's your day doing? Uh, Today I want to give my predictions for the Chiefs' record in the 2026 and 2027 NFL season. We just got the news that Mahomes is cleared for training camp and that he should most likely be good to go for week one. So I think now is a proper time to actually evaluate what we think the Chiefs are going to do this year. And before we get started going week by week, I just want to kind of talk about the format that I'm going to use for this. So when I look at each game, uh, there's going to be I'm either going to say that the game is most likely to win for them. We'll just say like 75%. Because no game's ever guaranteed. We'll say that the game's 50-50. It could be either team, or they might probably lose this game, and maybe they have like a 25% chance to win or something. And from that, uh we're gonna make a floor and a ceiling. So we'll show, like, you know in my opinion, the worst case, how many games they're gonna win, versus in the best case, how many games they're gonna win. And with that, let's go ahead and get started on the first game. All right, week one, Kansas City opens the home opener against the Denver Broncos. Um, the Broncos, as much as us Chief fans probably don't want to admit it, have become a pretty good team. I mean, one game away from the Super Bowl last year. They kept pretty much their team that they needed to do that. They added Jalen Waddle. And, when we look at the series, when they'll play each other twice, I get the feeling that they're probably going to split that series this year. So I would say this game's probably a 50-50. It could go either way. But just given the home field advantage, I'll say that the Chiefs will probably win this one. But again, it's a 50-50 game. And we will say the Chiefs take this one, and we'll revisit this when we get later on in the series. On to week two. All right, week two, the Chiefs are home once again, taking on the Indianapolis Colts. I think that the Colts are a team with a lot of question marks. You got Dan Jones coming off his injury. Are they going to be the same team that they were last year? Are they going to be as good, basically, as the first part of the year, rather than like the latter part of the year after he got hurt? Um, and with all those question marks, I mean, you're pretty early in the season. I do think that the Chiefs should win this game. I don't see a reason that they should lose this game. So we'll go ahead and put that in the 75%, like, should win this game. Let's go ahead and move on to week three. All right. You got week three, the Chiefs road opener, traveling to Miami to take on the Dolphins. The Dolphins are a team that are in full rebuild mode. Um, they're missing a lot of things. Uh, Malik Willis, yes, they got him, but what does he have around him left in a team? This is a should win game for the Chiefs, if there ever was a should win game for the Chiefs. And assuming that they manage to beat the Broncos, this could be a pretty hot start for the Chiefs. Starting out 3-0 right out of the gate. So yeah, let's go ahead and say that's like a 75% win chance for the Chiefs, and move on to week four. All right, week four, another road game as the Chiefs travel to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. Um, I know that the Raiders got their quarterback and they got their running back last year. They did a lot of moves this offseason, but uh, when you make moves, it's just like any team. Until you actually test it out, you can't really trust that. You can only go based on what you've seen. And I think last year, the Raiders were not a good team. I mean, the Chiefs weren't really either, but I think the Chiefs got a lot better, and I'm not so sure that the Raiders did. So I'm gonna go ahead and say this should again be a should win game for the Chiefs, probably about 75%. And we're just gonna move on from there. And I look forward to the Raiders proving me wrong and making this a competitive series, but I'm not sure it will be. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to week five. All right, moving on. So in week five, the Chiefs actually have a really early bye week. We'll see if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It just depends on, are people hurt? Do people need the week off? But it's going to be a rather long bye week because the Chiefs play the Raiders in week 4 on October 4th, and then they don't play again until the Chargers until October 18th. So, you got a big break there for them. Uh, but week 6, Chiefs Chargers. I'll say this, for in terms of the Chargers, another great team in the AFC West. Lots of good talent there. And like with the Broncos, I think that this is going to be a series that the Chiefs are going to split. Uh, they'll win one, Chargers will win one. But, given this game will be in Kansas City, I'm going to give the edge to them. And I know that through these first 6 weeks, I've got the Chiefs at 5-0, but just as easily in those divisional games, they could lose those two and be 3-2. They should win the other 3 games though, for sure. But given home field advantage, we'll say the Chiefs are rolling into week 6 or through week 6, 5-0, and we're gonna move on to week 7. All right, you got week 7. Kansas City is traveling to Seattle to take on the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Seahawks. I know that the Seahawks lost a lot of their defense, and I don't know if I want to say that that team is built to run it back. Uh, Obviously, time will tell with everything, but I don't think anybody had the Seahawks on their radar even going into the playoffs. So, you know, it we'll see what that team can do. Right now, I would say the Seahawks and the Chiefs somewhat are on a similar path. Obviously, the Seahawks lost players, and the Chiefs, made a bunch of moves to build their team, but they're both unproven teams. And I'll say this game could go either way. We'll call it a 50-50 game. Um, and if they haven't gotten it yet, given that it's in Seattle, I think this is a game where the Chiefs could take their first loss. So, I'm going to say the Chiefs most likely lose, or, most likely lose this game, but it really is a 50-50 game. I could see the Chiefs winning this game, or I could see them losing this game. It really just depends on, how the moves that these two teams have made shape out in the offseason. And with that, let's move on to the next one. All right, moving on to week 8. The Chiefs will travel to Denver to take on the Broncos. Um, yeah, like I said earlier when we were talking about the Broncos, uh, I think the Chiefs are going to split this series. I don't think they're going to sweep the Broncos. They're a good team, and it wasn't a fluke that they were in the championship game last year. As much as I don't want to admit that as a Chiefs fan, but with that said, you're in Denver. I think the Broncos do win this game, and these could be back-to-back losses for the Chiefs. Moving on. All right, moving on to week 9. Kansas City will be hosting the New York Jets. Um, I mean, it's the Jets, guys. Like, do we really have that much faith that this is going to be? I mean, maybe this game will be competitive. I remember a couple years ago there was a game that was pretty close between these two teams, but I don't really see a world where the Jets win this game. This is a should-win game for the Chiefs. Uh, and it's the Jets. I don't have a lot to talk about. Let's go ahead and move on. All right, week 10. Kansas City is traveling to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. You know, once again, I have to say, like, this is a team that, the whole NFC South is their winning team was 8-9. I don't think any of those teams were good to say. Maybe some were injured last year, but I think about it like this: and if I'm wrong, I'll put it on screen here. But the Falcons are the team that took Jawan Taylor from us, and if you're needing to employ the services of Jawan Taylor, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. you're talking about a left tackle who will himself kill drives for you, and that's a recipe for disaster. That I mean, that's an oversimplified look of what the Falcons have done, but that's how I look at this. So I'm gonna say this is another should win game for the Chiefs, and I know that it seems like I'm glazing them, but don't worry, there are some tougher games coming up, and we'll balance out that record. So let's go ahead and move on. All right, week 11, Kansas City will be hosting the Arizona Cardinals. Um, Cardinals are kind of the team that I think have been the most clowned or like memed on since the draft, given who they drafted and what their needs are. And this is just another thing where once again I can't see a path where that team wins this game. So I think the Chiefs will. This should be another should win game for Kansas City. Um, and I think these early wins are going to matter a lot because the Chiefs have a lot of stiff competition coming up that will be quite difficult to win. So they need to get their wins early, get them put away, so they can be ready for the playoffs. So we win this one, and we're moving on. All right, week 12, and this is one of the first big games besides the divisional games. Kansas City traveling to Buffalo to take on the Bills. Very storied rivalry. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes in these regular season games. Uh, and uh, as much as it's nice for the Chiefs to win the postseason games, the ones that matter, the Chiefs have consistently shown that they are usually a play or two behind in these regular season matchups between the Bills and the Chiefs, and it doesn't really matter what Allen has on his roster. He wins those games. Great quarterback, probably my second favorite quarterback in this league. And I think that the Bills get it done. And I think this is a game the Chiefs should lose. Um, 25% that they're gonna win this game for the Chiefs. So yeah, Bills win. And the Chiefs are moving on. All right. And with that, for week 13, the Chiefs will be traveling to LA to take on the Rams, another brutal road game to continue that spree. And, the Rams are a great football team. We watched it. They went toe to toe with the Super Bowl champions last year, and in a lot of ways, they've only gotten better. Besides that, Ty Simpson pick at quarterback, but we'll set that aside. This is a team that is knocking on the door of a Super Bowl, and the only thing that's going to stop them is themselves. And I think that however much we don't want to admit it, the Chiefs kind of are in a little bit of like a retool, and maybe that retool isn't done this year per se. Like it probably needs another year to finish. So I'm gonna go ahead and say the Rams should win this one. 25% chance the Chiefs win this. It does suck having back-to-back losses, but again, you're going against two of the best teams in the league back-to-back on road games. You know, if the Chiefs can somehow manage to win one of those two games when we get there, it'd be a miracle. Yeah, and let's go ahead and move on. All right, and following that road game, you got another potential big hitter. Kansas City traveling to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. The Bengals are a team that's such hit or miss for me. And it really obviously it comes down to if Joe Burrow's playing. Like last couple seasons, they've really struggled, but you know, before his injuries have struck him, the Bengals have been a pretty competitive team, and they got Dexter Lawrence. Their defense, should be better than one of the worst in the league, and that this is a game that could be really interesting to see played out. I'm honestly not sure who even wins this one. We'll go ahead and say that this is a 50-50 game. Um, I'm going to give the edge to the Chiefs just, cuz I feel like as a team they are a more complete team, but you know, I do have to wonder and we'll know by the time we get to this game, is the Chiefs new secondary room, after all the moves that happened in this offseason, gonna be able to even slow down T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Joe Burrow? If those three are on the field, this could be a very high scoring game. That's for sure. But we'll go ahead and say, 50-50 game. There's, the Chiefs could win this one, could lose this one, and we'll set that in for the end when we see what the ceiling and what the floor looks like, and we'll go ahead and move on to the next one. All right, you got week 15. Chiefs will be hosting the New England Patriots. Um Not that I don't think the Patriots are a good team. I still think they are. I just don't think that they're going to be the same team that they were last year. I don't think they're going to be as much of a juggernaut, basically. Um, so I still think this could be a competitive game, but I think this is going to be, you could maybe call this a 50-50 game, but I do think the Chiefs should win this one. If I actually had to assign percentages to it, I would say 60-65 that the Chiefs should win this game. And with that, let's just go ahead and move on. All right, week 16, you got Kansas City hosting the San Francisco 49ers. I don't know how to evaluate the 49ers per se. Um, I think it would depend, a lot of people talk bad about them for their like draft picks, and evaluating draft picks based on what value I think that you got is kind of a bad strategy. It really just depends on, are those guys going to be the guy that works out for what they were drafted for. Um so by the time this game gets closer, you'll know a lot more. I think this game is another 50-50 game. I don't I mean, Chiefs could win, Chiefs could lose. I don't know. It really depends on what kind of team both of these teams shape out to be by the time we get there. So we'll chalk that one up to 50-50, and we'll move on to the next one. All right, week 17, Kansas City traveling to LA to take on the Chargers. And like I said at the beginning, with the Chargers, I do think this is a series that's going to be split. I don't think the Chiefs are going to sweep the Chargers. And given that this is in LA, I'm going to give the edge to them. But, just as with the Broncos, these could be flipped. Chiefs could win on the road and lose at home. Who knows? But I do think that the Chargers are going to win this game. And with that, let's go ahead and move on to week 18. All right. Week 18, Chiefs are hosting the Raiders. And, I suppose if you were to have a week 18 game, this would be the game to have for a divisional game at the end, because I do think, the Chiefs will sweep the Raiders. And obviously, but, we still need to see what the Raiders shape up to be, but, too many question marks. I think the Chiefs should win this game. And with that, we'll go ahead and tally up the totals. All right. So with all that said, Chiefs, I'm giving them a ceiling of 13 wins, 4 losses, and a floor of 7 wins, 10 losses. Um, I don't expect them to be at either one of those. I think that there's a middle ground in there, but some of those games are just so hard to decide, who's going to win, who's going to lose. It's better to just, set the range. So I do think that even in the worst case scenario, the Chiefs will win one more game than they did last year. But, at that ceiling, I mean, they could be a team eyeing the number 1 seed or the first place in the West. You've got some range there, and it'll all come down to, how they perform and how they play. But thank you guys for watching. And if you have your own opinions, comments about my opinions on these games, go ahead and leave them in the comments. I do respond to all those. And with that, have a great day and see you around.